How's it going, everybody? It's the CDH Warrior coming at you with another episode of the Shirtless Chef, and today we are making Inari Sushi. I don't know if you all can see the recipe, but that is what we are going to be making today, or at least attempting. So this is going to be a multi-step thing. So without further ado, let's roll the title. So today we are going to be making Inari Sushi. So we're going to have to shuffle the camera around a little bit, depending on what we're cooking, what we're doing. Hang on. Sorry, I had to shuffle the camera around a little bit more. This setup is so weird because I've got to have it above me so we can see what we're doing. So, as I was explaining, we are making Inari Sushi today, which is rough translated to fox sushi. Now, I won't get into a lot of the lore and bore you with it, but the general explanation is the lore was fox demigods were given this as an offering, generally fried tofu, but they would, according to the legend, they would take this and rice and put it together and have this as their offering to the gods, generally for deities of agriculture. But without boring you with too much, let's start cooking, because this is going to take about 30-ish minutes to make, maybe a little more. So we're going to start off with the sushi rice. We've got, where did I leave my sushi rice? Here. So I bought sushi rice for this, and the reason why is because a lot of other rice won't work. Not for this application, at least. So we're going to start off, got my glass measuring cup. Got a dishcloth right here, I'll dry this out. So to be honest, this is going to be the longest part, is trying to cook the sushi rice. So we're going to take 2 cups of rice, yes, I know my head's in the way. Sorry. Let me move this out of the way. That's approximately 1 cup of rice. Now, the thing about sushi rice is it's sticky. We're not going to add the kombu and everything else that would normally go into this. So I'm not necessarily going to worry about rinsing the rice. I mean, standard you would, but you know what? I will end up rinsing the rice. So we'll shuffle around. Sorry about that. I did not realize I had the camera paused. But all I did was really rinse the sushi rice. And you want to rinse it so that there's no real starch in it. That it's one. For our rice, we're going to add 1.5 cups of water. Okay. That's good. So now, as far as the sushi rice is concerned, so we're going to let this cook. So at this point, we can't do anything else to this. So we're going to turn around and move back to our pan. Okay, so we're back with our pan. So now, our next thing we're going to make is we're going to make our avocado. So there is a way that you can do this relatively simply. That vinegar is good. So we've got seasoned rice vinegar that we're going to use in our Inari sushi. That is not traditional for making sushi rice, but we're going to use it this way just because it's going to give us a little extra flavor. Now, for the most part, all of this is going to be done in real time, with the exception of a couple of pauses that you may or may not realize have happened. One, when I was rinsing the rice. Another one, just to shuffle a couple every now and then just to shuffle the camera. But otherwise, we're going to keep it as close to live as possible. And I am locking the camera. We're going to try and reset the camera for a second. Okay, all we did was pause just to shuffle the camera around. But the reason why we did that is because now you can see over my shoulder, shuffle. This is a better angle and you can actually see what I'm doing in the pan, although it's not close enough. Let's try and reset this again. Still don't like that angle. Okay. This is better. This is actually livable. So, as I stated before, we've got our rice that we've got set up. All we really need is the rice vinegar, that is salt, not sugar. This is the sugar that we're adding to the rice. Oh, and salt. This is all of the stuff we need for our sushi rice. Now, part 2, hang on 1 second, is here. So part 2 is going to be our firm tofu. So we've got it pretty well dried off. And we're going to make our Inari agi. So I'm not going to make standard Inari agi just because I don't know if it really needs it. But what we are going to do is we're going to grab our oil. We have just some plain canola oil. This would not be a standard in this recipe just because of the way we're doing it. So we are making abarage from scratch, as opposed to, sorry, I just realized I was out of camera again. We're making abarage from scratch instead of trying to do it, trying to buy and then redo it. So we're going to attempt this, and if it's bad, hey, we've got a good laugh. But anyway, I need that oil. Just put my oil down and didn't realize I still needed it. Okay. So first things first, we've got our pretty well dried tofu. And we are going to cut it into slabs. Okay, so here's our knife. I'm going to grab a cutting board. Our rice is starting to cook up quite well. So now we're going to take our dried tofu, or semi-dried tofu. This is so odd. I'm moving around a block of fried tofu, a block of regular firm tofu, just to get it to work for the camera. But we're going to make, I'm going to cut it into slices, about like this, small slabs. And it's one, all we're really looking to do is get slabs of tofu. That's going to make about 6 of them. To be honest, I really don't want more than that because this is kind of a test recipe. I will try this again with the pre-made abaragi. But for right now, we're just going to attempt hang on one second. So I just needed to check on the recipe and make sure I was going to do this right. So I've got 6 slabs of this, but we're going to put our oil in. Sorry, I'm trying to read. So we want to get our oil to around 230 degrees. I've got an instant read thermometer that I'm using. Looks like our rice is pretty close to done. We want the oil to be around 230 to 240. $2.12. $2.25. 230. So we've got our oil around 230 degrees. Sorry, I'm using 2 phones for this. And our rice is done. So this is the first part, is trying to get it. You want to basically cold fry it to begin with. We are going to hot fry it a second time after we stuff it with the rice. Speaking of the rice, it is now done. So now we are going to take our rice cooker. So now we're going to go back to the rice cooker and what we're trying to do is fry it. I don't know if this is actually going to work, so be forewarned, we could end up with a very bad recipe. But, so our rice is done. Grab a spatula. We just turned our pieces of tofu. So all we're really trying to do is to get it to expand. And it's going to take a couple of minutes for it to do that. But like I said, we're going to turn our attention back to our rice. So to deal with our rice, we're going to make sushi vinegar. So I'm going to use, ironically, a 1-quart measuring cup, although I don't need something that big, to make our sushi vinegar. But remember our vinegar? Our sugar, And our salt. We just recently swept the floor, so it's not a big issue. We're going to kind of stir this to kind of get it set together to dissolve. So I'm going to disappear off camera to put this in the microwave. I will be back in a second. So now it begins to look like our sushi is starting to fry up nicely. We're just going to continue to turn these as they start to kind of puff up. There's our sushi vinegar. I'm going to step off camera and retrieve it. Wow. Word of advice, after heating this, do not just immediately lean over and smell it. It is very vinegary. It's very acidic smelling. But now we're going to go back to our rice. Oh yeah. I wish you all could have smell-o-vision right now. Because this is some really good food. Our oil is about 260 right now. I'm going to go step off camera for a second and retrieve a plate so we can plate this. So here's our plate. Now, this is not what we're going to use permanently, just what we're using at the moment. I've unfortunately lost a bit of weight, which is why my shorts are not fitting right. But oh yeah. These are turning golden brown and delicious. So the biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out is the not want to melt our spatula. Kind of shuffle this up just for a second. So we're going to kind of put this to the back. So now we're going to move these over to a plate. This is not the final plating. This is just hang on. This is just to kind of move them off so we can fry the rest of them up. And when you're frying things like this, you need to pay attention to your oil because it can get out of hand really quick. Around 230 right now, so. Drop the heat a little bit. And now we're going to fry 2 more slices. So this is kind of our second batch. We're frying this in 3 batches. This is our first batch. See how I got brown just from being in the oil? That's what we want. So now let's turn our attention back to our rice. Because now we need to get a serving bowl. We're going to move this plate back. We're going to get So we're going to move our rice and turn our attention back to our rice. So at this point, the rice is cooked. We have fully cooked sushi rice. And this is probably a little more than we need, but okay. This is going to stick together pretty well. Excuse me. Rice cooked up well. But now we're back to our rice. I'm not going to use all the rice that I made for this. But here's our sushi vinegar. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour our vinegar in here. This is what happened to our sugar and salt. Sounds like we're about to get a storm. So this recipe is taking a little bit longer just because of the way I'm having to do it. And I'm also taking you step by step with very few cuts in the midst of everything. So this is going to be kind of a long video. That's going to be really good. We're going to continue to kind of stir our rice in, all while checking on our tofu. How's it doing? let's get back to discussing why I cook this kind of recipe. So I am lactose intolerant, but having been through that, I have a food allergy. So it's kind of hard to figure out recipes where I can completely avoid dairy. Because that's so good. Being in the United States, dairy is just a major part of our world. And if you dare say you can't have lactose, generally somebody will come up with the, well, you just haven't tried it right. It took me, I may not have any rice left. This is so good. So, with the dairy industry, it's such a major part of the U.S. culture that if you dare consider that you're lactose intolerant, people just doubt. I didn't find out I was lactose intolerant or had a lactose allergy until I was a teenager. So that's why I try my best to avoid it. And that's where I took Japanese, because they really don't have any dairy in their food. Rarely do they have cheese. Pretty much what we consider dairy and having a lot of dairy in food is more westernized, more Americanized. For that matter, there are people that can't have meat for certain reasons. I'm not talking about religious reasons. I'm talking about they full on cannot have certain meats. My mother, after her radiation treatments, couldn't have much meat. She had endometrial cancer, and they did radiation. They did pelvic radiation, and it actually injured her colon. So her colon and her intestines. So anytime she had meat, specifically, I think it was primarily beef. I think it was beef and pork. She would end up bleeding, which is not good. Especially not after having cancer. But it looks like these are pretty much done. This recipe took a little bit longer than I expected or had planned. Oh yeah, those crisped up well. We're going to actually make them to where we got more of a tofu pouch after we fry them the second time. Now somehow, I still have more tofu to fry. Our oil is about 270. That was a boneheaded mistake. Should have used the spatula. Of course, the thing is, the oil is $270. So we really need to cool it down a bit. I'm going to turn the heat off. So, oh, excuse me 1 second. So this is not quite real time. This is still right around 250. So we've got a second frying of this. So in case you're wondering, where are our pouches? They're going to be refried a second time. And that's how we're going to get our I think we're doing okay, so we'll set this to the side. Just check and make sure. While this is doing that, I'm going to get a container to finish the rest of your rice. Okay, I just finished with the first round. And our next part, we're going to try and get our oil up to about 360. I didn't think about this being such a long recipe. Okay. So that's, our oil is up to 370. So we're going to put these back in. And I want you to see what they're doing. So what we're getting is it's starting to puff up a little bit. They're not going to be perfect. In all honesty, they're not going to be. I really don't care. I just wanted to do this recipe as a proof of concept. That I could actually make it, and that you could actually make it. That burned instead of, well, it's not going to work the way it planned. This was supposed to puff up. We are going to cut the heat off. I'm going to find a plate. They just burned. This did not do what it was supposed to. Part of it, I think, is my error. Gotta let the soil cool off. So we're back. I'm just going to show you how to finish this off because this recipe has not worked. We're going to try again. Instead of making our own Inari agi, we are going to use store-bought next time. So we are going to attempt this recipe again sometime in the future, but it's not going to be today. But, as you can see, I've got my abaragi that I've been attempting to fry. I think these are going to come out a little bit better than that first one did. But, yeah, gotta let it cool. Okay, this one actually did well. So we're going to try and stuff this one. So let me show you how I normally stuff it and plate it. Let me grab a plate. Okay, so now for the plate. So I've already got one kind of put together. That's what it's kind of supposed to look like. I'm going to take a knife and kind of open this one up a little bit more. And I have a ton of sushi rice that I have no idea what to do with. So here's our general plating. We're going to take our abarage, put some rice into the middle of it. And yes, this is going to be a little bit messy. These are a lot smaller than what I should have made, but I didn't think some of the things that happened in this video were going to happen. So, this was my fault for planning wrong. But, here is our Inari sushi. So for garnish, I've got some pickled ginger. By the way, this was not supposed to be an hour-long recipe. It was supposed to be maybe 30 minutes. So now we're going to taste this and see how we did. I don't have high expectations considering I completely screwed up this recipe, but it can't be bad. Not bad. It's crunchy, it's savory, you've got the bite from the vinegar and the pickled ginger. All in all, it's not a bad recipe, but don't follow my attempt and try and make your own abarage. It just doesn't work. So, for the Shirtless Chef, a whole new episode of How to Cook. Today was Inari Sushi. Have a great day.